Right, today is day 28 of Bible in 90 Days, or What's in the Bible, where we're reading through the entire Bible from Genesis, which is the start of the Old Testament, to Malachi, the end, then the New Testament from Matthew, the Gospels, etc., all the way to Revelation, the end of the Bible. So we're doing this just to get a full picture of what the Bible says, just what the story is. No preaching, no, exposition or any of that. Just let's just see what it says, just a little bit of a summary. So we said we're in the book of Kings. This is Second Kings now. Today is the last day in Second Kings. Second Kings chapter 16 to 25, and that's the end of that before we get into First Chronicles. So this is the time where there were kings that were ruling over Israel and Judah. It's now Israel and Judah because the kingdom was split as a result of Solomon's sin. So things started to go, haywire from there. After they had a good time with King David, and before that, King Saul. So we also heard about the prophets. The two major ones that we've heard about so far is Elisha and Elijah, who came into Israel and were sent by God to, do specific tasks or to say exactly what God wanted to be done, even though the kings really were supposed to be doing this, but their hearts were swayed by other things and they went into idolatry. And whilst we're there, I'd just like to say thank you to a few people who've been sending me messages or just supporting the page and sending me encouragement, etc. People like Mario, Davino, Enobun, Zoe, Olusegun, Daniel, Hito, James, Elliot, Motti, San, Jack, Shanice, Kevin, Erica, Jordan, Jesse, Seth, Vinzi, John, Caitlin, Arnold, Ola, Callum, Moradeo, Emima, Fabio, and so many more. So thank you guys, thank you so much. I love to read the Bible, and I'm happy that you're finding some of this stuff helpful. I hope you will read the Bible, the entire Bible, for yourself as well, just to get a feel of what the story is, whether you're a Christian or not, or if you're thinking about being a Christian, or you're thinking about no longer becoming a Christian or whatever. Just reading the Bible to know what the story is before you make those kind of decisions. So thank you so much. So today we continue 2 Kings chapter 16 all the way to 25. 2 Kings 16, we are about King Ahaz, who reigned in sin. He copied some designs from King of Assyria and started making changes to temple designs. King of Aram and Israel tried to attack Judah, but they failed. 2 Kings 17, Hoshea rules as well in sin, and he rebelled against Assyria. Assyria invades everything because the Israelites had disobeyed God's commands, by worshipping other gods and idolatry. And notice, before we had the Egyptians, then we had the Philistines, then we had Aram, which is Syria. Now we also have Assyria. Then we're going to see Babylon. So there's all these different nations that were coming in and out of Israel's history to either be allies or to persecute them and make wars with them. So all of Israel at this point is taken captive except for Judah. They're all taken into exile. The Israelites are back in captivity. So if you remember back in the day when we were reading Exodus, they were in captivity and slavery in the land of Egypt. They were taken out of there, taken to the promised land. Everything was good. They had good kings, good judges, etc. But now, because of the sin, they are back in captivity, which is a sad story really at this point. So some nations, so their land is taken away from them. Then some other nations are actually settled in Samaria or in Israel, but they were killed. The people that were resettled, they were killed by lions because they didn't know how to worship God properly. So a priest was sent to actually show them how to worship God properly. Although the nations continue to worship God, they also started worshiping, they continue to worship whatever gods that they used to have. 2 Kings 18, we hear about a popular character actually as far as the kings are concerned. The reign of King Hezekiah, who followed the law. He renewed, he removed idol worship. He rebelled against the king of Syria, and just wanted to do things according to the way that God wanted him to to do it. We hear about the besieging of Samaria again for obeying God's commands. The king of Assyria moves into Judah, but he's actually paid off so that he wouldn't capture them. King Assyria sends again for the capture of Judah, and there was this real pompous and proud nature about how he was doing things. And there's this conversation really that he's almost coming to a point where he says even God could not stop him from doing whatever he was doing, and obviously this was really disrespectful. 2 Kings 19, Hezekiah gets the threat obviously from King Assyria that they wanted to take over Judah, and he goes to God and prays to God for for deliverance. God sends another prophet, a major prophet that we're going to get to at some point, called Isaiah. At this point, Isaiah said, God would deliver them, and all they would do is just have to, to trust him. So we then get an insight into how God had control over the entire situation about these events that were happening at this point. We then hear about the death of King Sennacherib, who was, the king of Assyria at this point, and a prophecy about restoration. So the way they actually won this war is God simply sent an angel and killed 185,000 soldiers of the of the Assyrians. 2 Kings 20, we hear about Hezekiah. He falls ill, and and he's told of his pending death, but he didn't want to die at this point, so he goes and he prays and he cries to God. God hears Hezekiah's prayer and gives him 15 more years. And we also hear again about the involvement of Isaiah in this process. We also hear about the king of Babylon. So this is the first few times we are about to hear about this new kingdom of Babylon. So the king of Babylon sends some envoys to Isaiah to wish him well, since they had heard that he was ill. And we then hear Isaiah's message to the king about what this actually meant. 2 Kings 21, Hezekiah, in his extra 15 years, he gave birth to a child called Manasseh, who then became the king. And Manasseh, according to 2 Kings 21, was a bad king. He undid almost everything that Hezekiah did, because Hezekiah was a good king, and he just undid all of that. Things like high places, altars, idols, things, soothsaying, mediums, wizards. He sacrificed his children in the fire, shed innocent blood, etc. So, Manasseh was not a great king. We then hear that God's anger at this point is roused, and he would cast off both Israel and Judah, because at this point only Israel had been taken away, but now he's saying both Israel and Judah would be taken away. We then also hear about the death of Manasseh, and his son Amon succeeds him. Amon is killed in a conspiracy after reigning in sin. Josiah succeeds him after his conspirators were killed. 2 Kings 22, Josiah, the one who had succeeded, did what was right. He was actually a good king. He tried to do the right things. He started some repairs to the temple, because the temple had been damaged. And at this point, the book of law, which was maybe the Mosaic law, was found by Hilkiah, who was the high priest. So just a note on that, to say, well, for them to actually find it, it means nobody knew where it was, nobody was reading it, nobody was paying any attention to it. So that's interesting. Then we had about Josiah's repentant and humble heart after reading the law and seeing the things that Israel were not doing. We then hear a message from the prophet that is sent to Josiah that he would not see the destruction that was coming. 2 Kings 23. Josiah has the law read out to everybody, and then he rededicates the covenant. At this point, he then does a serious cleanup of all the idols and the altars and every forbidden thing. All the false priests were also killed. But all of this stuff about Josiah, if you remember, the very first time the kingdom was beginning to split, there was a man of God or a prophet that was sent to Jeroboam to tell him that these things were going to happen. So now Josiah is simply outworking this this prophecy. However, even with all these things that Josiah was doing to remedy the situation, it says that God's judgment was still coming. It was, how can I say, maybe too late at this point. God's judgment was still coming, and it was already set. We then hear about the death of Josiah and his succession by Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz, he did what was evil, and he was actually captured by Pharaoh. So this is back to the Egypt days now. So he was captured by Pharaoh, and a tax was imposed on the land so as to pay Pharaoh. Then we hear that a guy called Eliakim, his name was then changed to Jehoiakim. These names are really hard to say, but Eliakim, he was now made the king, and he also did what was evil. 2 Kings 24, Then comes Babylon at this point. King Nebuchadnezzar, whom you might have heard of, King Nebuchadnezzar, he comes in, he takes everything from Judah and Israel, and he besieges the city at this point. All the people are taken, to exile in Babylon, except just for the poor. The really, really poor were left, in Israel and Judah, but everybody is taken to exile to Babylon, because Babylon now is the new great kingdom, the new great power after Assyria, after the Philistines, after, all these other nations that we have already heard about. Then Zedekiah is left to be the king. 2 Kings 25, the last chapter of today, and almost the end of this kind of era, we hear about the capture of the king, the burning of the temple. So Solomon's temple, the Solomon temple that we heard about, that was so magnificent, so awesome, is burnt, at this point. So it's a really low point in the history of Israel. The palaces, are also burnt and destroyed. People are taken into exile. Their goods are taken away from them. The gold, the silver, the bronze things. Then a governor is set over the land, but he doesn't last for very long because he's killed. Some of the people, while some of the people are being taken to Babylon, some people go back to Egypt. So again, now that we have the history of what it took to get them out of Egypt to get to this point, for them to be going back again to to Egypt, that's where it is. Then later on, we hear about a new king called Evil-Merodach, who released one of the kings that had been taken to Babylon. He released Jehoiakim, and he treated him well, and that's actually the end, at that point. So tomorrow, when we get into First Chronicles, it's almost going to be like a rewind or a recap from Genesis, about the families, etc., etc. Then we'll get a little bit more information that might have been missed out in First Kings and Second Kings, which is like the kings of Judah and what happened here and there. Then the story continues, again after that. So hopefully, that's helpful. I'll see you guys tomorrow.